Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Night Grumpy Sound Guy Show. I am your host, Mr. J.R. Everhart, the Grumpy Sound Guy himself. In this episode, we are going to talk about two things. It's kind of a double hitter episode. We're going to talk about the importance of loading in for the loadout. So that's a topic we're going to discuss. And then we're going to go through my front of house bag here. I had someone ask in one of the comments what I kind of roll around with as far as my front of house bag and the tools that I carry and all the little bag of tricks literally that I carry around. We're going to take the camera off the tripod and get over there, and we're going to actually go through what I have in that, and hopefully that'll help you guys be better prepared to be able to troubleshoot and do everything that you need to do and show up at the gigs with all the tools and the little tricks in your bag that you could possibly need. So stick around. You don't want to miss a second of today's episode. Hey guys, if I can have literally 60 seconds of your time here just to ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It costs absolutely nothing to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can help us give you more of this content on the free side of the channel. Also, if you're really digging what we're doing here and you're digging the Grumpy Sound Guy content, please consider joining the membership side of the YouTube channel. It costs about $5 a month, so about the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee or whatever. You can become an inner circle supporter of the Grumpy Sound Guy and the content that I'm putting up. We'll get all kinds of really cool one-on-one live chat stuff in there, group chat stuff, all that sort of thing. Plus you'll get content that is posted there that will never become public, you know. So make sure you get over there and check that out. And thank you for supporting everything that I'm doing here with the Grumpy Sound Guy. Okay, so let's dive right in. Part one, load in for the loadout. Basically what that means is, and I harp on this with my guys all the time, especially the new guys, the younger guys who really don't know what they don't know yet. We're going to try to load in a manner that makes our loadout as quick and easy as possible. So a big part of that is really cable management. And I could probably do a whole video on cable management. You know, obviously you should be wrapping your cables over, under, you know, and things like that. But where you leave and how you manage the slack of your cabling and stuff like that really goes a long way in, you know, how much time you're going to spend at the end of the night unraveling a rat's nest worth of cabling. So what I typically do, and this is kind of a rule of thumb in CLP audio and staging, is that with the front of house boxes, we typically leave the slack or the extra cabling at the speaker itself. So, you know, most of our club stuff has speakers on stands, and then the subs are usually arrayed in the center of the stage area or whatever there. We'll leave the extra slack of the cable. We'll start at the amp rack and work our way back when we're unraveling the cable one loop at a time off of the cable, you know, thing. I have Velcro on every one of my cables. So yeah, man, if you're working for me, you're going to hear me harp on this a lot. You know, put the slack at the speaker, Velcro that up so it doesn't get tied up in some AC cables or anything like that. With the monitor cables, if we're running a wedge system, then what we do is we create a pile of slack, organized chaos is what we call it, around the amp rack, not in front of the amp rack, but beside the amp rack, because you never want to pile up a bunch of cables in front of your control rack and your amp rack, because it's going to be in the way of you doing what you're doing all night, you know, especially if you got to go over there and troubleshoot a problem or whatever. Something else that I do is I number all my XLR cables. So it's really hard to manage cables correctly on stage, especially if you have a big drum set that has a lot of microphones on it and you got a lot of cables. Try to use the cable length that is appropriate, to what you're using. So if you're miking a snare drum and your drum drop is right there next to the hi-hat or just in front of the snare, we use 10-foot cables for that. We use 10-foot cables for most of our drums that we mic, and then we'll even run like even a 15-foot over to the floor side of the drum set. It's less slack laying around on the stage. It looks better. We don't Velcro every one of those cables, but we try to just place them in a manner to where they're not going to turn into a knot. Obviously, the shorter the cable, the easier it is to untangle. So we don't stress out about the 10-foot cables too much, but trying to make some sense. I try to never run cables from upstage, which would be the back of the stage, to downstage, which would be the front of the stage. We try to put a drop snake on the downstage position and a drop snake usually at drums on the upstage position. That way musicians are not walking left to right across all your cabling. You're keeping upstage cabling upstage, downstage cabling downstage. So, it's just a matter of managing, cables in that way. Again, front of house, the slack is at the speaker. Monitors, we put the slack next to the amp rack, and then use the appropriate length of the cable that you need to for what you're doing around the stage. I think my XLR box has like little, maybe 1-foot cables. Like if I just need to come out of the drop box, the drop snake into a DI for an acoustic feed, usually the guy's acoustic will have a 20-foot cable, quarter-inch cable. So I'm not going to put a whole bunch of XLR cable on the stage. So I usually carry, 3 or 4 of those really short 1-footers. I think one of my kits has some 6-footers in it. Most of them just have a whole bunch of 10-foot, 15-foot, 20s, and then 25s or 30s. Some of the kits have 25s, some of the kits have 30s. And that's kind of how we manage, cabling. Then at the end of the night, when you go to pack everything up, you're not standing there for 30 minutes with this rat's nest of cables trying to untangle them and, all this, that, and the other, man. It's just cable management, man, cable management. So the other side of that is, where you're putting dead cases, in the club. Don't bury them somewhere in the back of the club knowing that at the end of the night, the club's going to be packed full of people and you're going to have a hard time getting to those cases. Now, if you're in a small club and you have no choice but to put your gear in some far away storage room, okay, that's one thing. But usually, like most of the rooms we work in, we're able to stack up like rack lids, the covers, the Tukey covers or whatever that's on front of house boxes and stuff like that. We can usually stack all them up next to the amp rack or somewhere close to the stage. Put things in a manner, set things up in a manner to where, it's going to be easy to roll out at the end of the night, where you're not causing yourself more work at the end of the night. Excuse me. Think about every aspect of what you do while you're setting up and how your setup procedure is going to affect your loadout procedure. And the more you do that, the more efficient you'll get at what you're doing. I'm super, anal detail kind of guy, so I am definitely someone who is always trying to chip away at that blunt rock to turn it into a sculpture, to try and make my load in, make my load out make more sense, to where we're all working smarter and not harder. This business is hard enough as it is. I shared a meme on Facebook yesterday that somebody put a banner up on the back of their stage at some festival somewhere and said, we didn't get into this, understanding, or we didn't get into this because we thought this would be easy or because it is easy. We got into this not knowing how hard it would be, something to that effect. And, I know a ton of young guys, man, and even middle-aged guys that are trying to, like maybe they've worked in the B circuit most of their life and they're trying to get into the A circuit or even dabble in freelance and some of the local bigger national shows and stuff like that, even as a stagehand. those guys never realize how much manual labor is involved in what we do. There's a huge amount of manual labor in this. I've spoke about this in other videos here recently, but I just finished a whole summer festival season with a torn meniscus in my left knee and plantar fasciitis in my right heel. So I was dealing with chronic pain in both of my legs and could not stop in the middle of the summer season to get my knee operated on, because then that would immobilize me for 2 weeks or something like that, 3 weeks. We just, to the credit of my podiatrist, they have done everything they can do to try and help out my heel pain situation. But that's just part of this business. This business is so incredibly labor intensive, I think especially young guys, when they come out of school, they have this romantic idea in their mind that they're going to just, get a gig where they just walk in, sit behind a console, like some kind of hierarchy, white collar kind of thing or whatever. And that's where they're going to spend their life. And then people are just going to throw $100 bills at them. That's not at all how this works, especially in the middle market, especially in this, this scene that you hear me doing content about all the time. Man, the reality of this is it's hard work, man. It's much, much more blue collar than it is white collar. Yes, you need to understand all the science that goes into this. I always say I can teach a monkey to run, a mixer, but it takes decades sometimes to teach somebody how to tune their ears, and it takes a long time to teach people system tech stuff and to teach people things like how your load in affects your load out, because it is very, very important in the manner in which you're trying to be efficient. And let me tell you something, I've had guys stand there and roll their eyes at me, especially, and I hate to keep, hounding on young guys, but this is where I see it at most. They'll stand there and roll their eyes because I want the slack in this place, or I want the slack in that place, or I want cables Velcroed up. They think I'm just being anal retentive, Now, I'll be the first to admit that I am definitely OCD. I definitely am an obsessive about certain things. But I also am very good at knowing which hills are worth dying over and which hills aren't. So I'm not going to make huge issues out of things that don't really matter in the big scheme of things. But at the same time, guys, these same guys that want to snark and laugh at me about setting up things a certain way are the same guys who are spending an extra 30 minutes trying to untangle cables and trying to get, find everything that they need to pack up at the end of the night. And I'm already out the door. And let me tell you something right now. Nothing communicates professionalism to a nightclub or a band than being efficient. I can't tell you how many times I've had nightclubs come to me like, man, we're so glad when you're here because our staff isn't standing around for 2 hours watching you pack up because, you feel like you need to talk to everybody in the room, or, you need your ego stroked or whatever. Like, as soon as the last downbeat is done, we're up there pulling cables. We're up there getting stuff done. We want to get out of there. In most cases, we're only 15, 20 minutes behind the band if the band is efficient about, getting their stuff tore down and getting out the door. There's been many times that we've been rolling down the parking lot and there's still drums set up on the stage, and things like that. That communicates to the bar owner that, boy, you really got your stuff together. And then it also communicates to the band. Like I said, I've had a lot of bands, come to me and they're like, JR, how do you get set up so quick? How do you get tore down so quick? How come our sound checks only take like 5 minutes and the guy we used last week was 15 minutes on, one rack com, or something like that during sound check? It's because everything that I do, I focus on streamlining what I'm doing. That's why you guys that are spec police and you guys that watch my content and like lose your mind because I'm not talking about, wiring in waves racks and all this other crazy stuff and everything. This is the middle market, dude. I'm not mixing the Foo Fighters. I'm mixing some usually mid B, upper B level cover band at a room that only gets 300-400 people in it. I'm not going to fall in love with the mix to that depth because it doesn't make me money that way. My whole objective in this is making money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not doing this because I need to stroke some kind of inner artistic, bull butter. I do this because I'm trying to make a living. I do this for a living. I have no other job. Like, this is what I do. Our company does 180 shows a year. So, I need to be as efficient as I can. My start scenes, when I fire the mixer up and I'm looking at the iPad, it's like my start scene's 80% there, 85% there. Even if it's a band I've never worked with before. You'll see me back at front of house or in the front of house position, roughing in, if there's a wedge monitor situation, I'm roughing in all those monitors before we even get to sound check. I'm roughing in things I know about this room because I work this room all the time. I try to put my best foot forward in everything that I do to make things as efficient as I can make them. If it's a band I regularly work on, sound check is really just making sure that everything's where it's supposed to be. It's line check. Because I know how the band's going to react. I know how the band's going to be. And, we're going to be 94.3% there, by the end of the first song. By the end of the third song in the first set, we're cooking with peanut oil at that point. It's grandma's biscuits the rest of the night. You know what I'm saying? We're getting it done. I save scenes for different rooms. If I get in a room that is kind of weird and wonky and I had to do some weird EQing to it, even if it's a band I work with all the time, I will save a separate scene for that room. So when I come back into that room, I know that the EQ is already there. I have a room in Baltimore like that. It's radically EQ'd different than any other room I work in. And every band that I work in that room has a separate scene saved for that room. It's about efficiency. That stuff leaves an enormous impression on that. Most of these clubs we're doing business in, they don't want you doing a 15, 20-minute sound check while there's people sitting around eating dinner and, stuff like that. Because let's face it, we deal with a lot of that. You know what I mean? Bartenders don't want to stand there and listen to you, going through the kick drum for, 10 minutes. Like, come on, dude. You should really have your stuff together in a manner to where you can be much more efficient, that way. And it leaves all the right impressions on all the right people. So you're really helping yourself by thinking in those terms. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of guys give me a hard time. Like, some of my young guys, especially the ones that just come out of school, they just want to get behind a physical desk and play, and it's like, I mix 99% of my shows on an iPad. It's just what, the rooms require in most cases, and it makes my setup and teardown way, way more efficient. I did a festival in Fells Point, Baltimore this summer, mixed the whole festival 3 days. In fact, we did two festivals there. One was 4 days, the other was 3 days. We mixed both festivals, wireless DMX, and on an iPad. And the promoter came to me like 2 or 3 times, like, dude, I love the fact that you don't have a bunch of wires running from the stage out here to your front of house tent. Like, all your stuff is wireless. That is so awesome. Now, in that scenario, it works really, really well. If I had a national band on that, then I would definitely have a physical M32 desk set up because those guys require that. But if it's something that I'm mixing, I have a very, very good reputation, for having solid, fat, clean, front of house mixes. And I got a guy with an iPad at the stage that's doing A2, managing monitors. And then I'm out front managing front of house, man. And we are getting it done, And then when you go to tear down from that festival, dude, it's so much easier. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have an ego to stroke. I know guys that are taking... $15, $20, $25,000 consoles to do their local moose lodge. Like, it blows my mind, man. And that's nothing but ego, dude. That's just, you want to look like, you want to pretend to be, Dave Nattell from the Rolling Stones or something or whatever. You want to pretend like you want to draw as much attention to yourself as you can and, look like, the big tech guy, a buddy of mine's company, they're absolutely famous for bringing 6-8 racks of gear to every gig that they don't need. And I'm not even talking about redundancy kind of stuff, because believe me, I get that. But I leave the redundancy stuff in the truck. No, those guys are trying to impress everybody by how much gear they have. So they take 90% of their inventory out to every show. And then they got to hire 4 guys to help them load in and load out on a show that really you could have done with 2 or 3 guys. Okay, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to work that hard. The budgets are not that great, to begin with. So you're already out here, barely scraping by and making a living in most cases. Why not make your load in and your load out as efficient as it can possibly be? Why not do what you do as efficiently as you can possibly do it? Everything in my system is set up for efficiency. Everything that I do is set up for efficiency, because I don't want to work any harder than I absolutely have to. I don't want to have to hire any more guys than I absolutely need on each gig, because that cuts into the overhead. So that is that conversation about load in for your load out. Now, let's move on to the second part of this video, which is going to be my front of house bag right there. Let me pull the camera off of the stand here, and we'll get back there, and I'll bring you right in on what I got going on there. Okay, so let's take a look at this front of house bag and what we got going on here. The whole idea really behind a front of house bag is to give you a little bag of tricks and something that you can kind of just keep all the little things that you need to do what you do in a mobile application. This has graduated from a backpack. I had a heavy duty backpack that I carried around for years and years. And then I guess about 1.5 or 2 years ago, I graduated to this because it's got wheels on it, and this handle goes up, kind of like a Pelican. Pro touring guys would be using some sort of a Pelican, to accomplish this. I don't see the sense in spending $300 on a Pelican when I think I got this at Lowe's or maybe even Harbor Freight or someplace like that. It's super duty, heavy duty. It's made out of plastic or some kind of polymer, thing there. Tons and tons of pockets all the way around it. I really like this rail on the front because I can put a zip tie on it and connect keys and, stuff like that. So yeah, and I think this thing costs, like $75-80, something like that. Instead of, $350 or $400 for a waterproof Pelican. I'm never going to fly with this. I mean, come on guys, we're middle market here. You know what I mean? Like I always say, we're not mixing the Foo Fighters. So it kind of is what it is. But let me go around this. This I probably use almost as much as anything else in this bag, if I can get it out. My hands are slippery. There we go. So you hear me talk about this device all the time. It's basically an AC checker. You turn it on. Let me walk over here to the wall, and I'll just show you exactly what we got. So you plug this in. I know this is completely retarded because most of you people are going to be like, I already know what this is. But that's what I like about it, is it tells you exactly how many volts you're getting out of that that circuit. I also, let me turn it back off. I also have what they call a whistler, which is this. So the way this works is you unplug this in. I'm trying to do everything with one hand here. Bear with me. Oh, here we go. So you can plug this. This is basically the same thing. It just doesn't have the screen on it, but it will tell you if a circuit's okay or not. But I can plug this into that circuit over there and then go back to my breaker box, and I can identify where that breaker is in the breaker box, because when I get to it, this will start whistling at me. That's why they call it a whistler. I just used this in a tiny little club. Had I known the club was going to be the size it was, I probably wouldn't have taken the gig, but it was with a client that I enjoy working with. So yeah, so we had to use that to identify, you know, the circuits in the room, because there was not a lot of circuits in the room. So that thing came in super handy. Here is another electrical device that you can, like, once you get all your AC cables run around your stage, you can go around with this thing and just touch the power strip, and it will whistle at you and tell you whether or not you have power there. So that actually really comes in handy when you are in a dark environment, that sort of thing. So this is a stand for an iPad you can put up. I keep Velcro handy everywhere. Everybody knows what this is. This is the newest, I think, version of the Leatherman, thing. That thing's worth its weight in gold. I absolutely love that. I usually carry that in my pocket during the winter months, because in the winter months we have a whole ton of clubs we do that have questionable stuff going on. So here is just kind of a handy dandy. I'm a drummer, so I keep 2 different types of drum keys with me. Sorry about the camera, guys. I'm trying to look and run the camera all at the same time. So there's a sonar key, because I have some sonar snares. There's a regular drum key, and then here's a lighting multi-tool that you can use for, truss setups and stuff like that. Try to keep all that in here. Down in here, I think it's just a bunch of iPad, adapters and maybe another charging cable or something. Once we get inside, let me, hang on a second here, guys. Let me put this up and around. It's supposed to connect in the back there. I've never actually done that before, but nevertheless, I guess I'll just hold it up. So as you can see, we got a couple iPads in here. I carry this iPad mini for playback. So all of our playback music is going to be, with that thing. This is a spare iPad that we'll use, like if I have an A2 on the gig, he'll use that iPad. I have an iPad Pro out front that I use. For that, we have a cordless drill. Everybody says, why do you carry lighter fluid around? Well, all of my professional roadies are saying, I know exactly why he's carrying lighter fluid around. It's because it helps take tape residue off of cables, or really off of anything you're trying to do. I carry a lot of towels and headbands. These are like those cooling towels or whatever. Man, in the summertime, those things are worth their weight in gold. So as you can see, I probably don't need half as many of these freaking towels in here, but there is the mess that is my world. I got some glasses there, more electrical tools, some spare batteries down in here, charging batteries and stuff, which I don't think I need that many batteries in there. Maybe we'll use this as an excuse to clean this out. So it looks like we got 2 drills in here. There's a tape measure, we got a screwdriver. This is small hand tools. That's just full of small hand tools. There's zip ties. There's some gaff tape. Let's probably pull that out. There's a baseball we got from the Orioles this past year. That's pretty freaking cool, huh? Yeah. Musicians Cafe podcast. Can't tell you enough about those guys. They're super cool. There's an interview on there with me, if you guys are interested in hearing my origin story. I got some 1/4-inch gaff tape for labeling stuff. Like I said, here's a tape measure. I think I usually have this up here somewhere. So I mean, you kind of get the vibe. I got more charging cables down in here. I think this might be one of those CZ, yeah, earbuds. I just kind of carry for emergency purposes in case somebody loses an earbud or something. There's adapters and all kinds of goofy stuff like that in here. More cables, some emergency prescription drugs, because I'm on blood pressure medication. I always carry an external battery, because we're mixing with iPads, and if we get in a situation where we need, we're running out of, battery power, we have an external battery there. So yeah, So that's kind of more zip ties there. You can kind of see what's going on there. Yeah. I also wanted to show you this pocket here. I forgot to show you this. Obviously, I got some business cards in there. I keep earplugs in there. This pocket is basically full of adapters and, small stuff, specialty cables, anything like that. A variety of Apple adapters, all that stuff we have in this pocket here. This bag, man, really, I can't say enough about it. Really kind of just gets it done, man. Here is the brand name. If you want to look it up online and find one yourself, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's a super cool bag. Makes a great front of house bag. Obviously, I got it tagged with all my name and information and stuff, so there's never any confusion at the gig at who it belongs to. You got these little things here on the side that you can clip stuff to. It's just, very, very convenient. So yeah, so that's sort of the deal, man. I got an extra pair of glasses on the side here. I usually keep reading glasses because I'll be 52 next Wednesday, actually. I try to keep reading glasses everywhere, all around me, even if they get scratched up or something. I have learned that it's better to have scratched up reading glasses than no reading glasses at all. But so there is the front of house bag that I now have to put back together once we get done with the video here. So this bag has saved my rear end more times than I can count, especially like with install stuff. It's just sort of my little bag of tricks. If I need an adapter or something like that, most of the time I have it in there. Sometimes I don't, it just all depends. So let me flip the camera around and we'll wrap this up. So there you have it. That is the front of house bag 101, or at least how I do the front of house bag. Like I mentioned in the turnaround video there, I really can't justify spending $300-400 on a really nice Pelican case when I'm really not, like if I was flying and I was doing much more fly-in stuff, which I get that occasionally, but it's not very often, then I would probably have a Pelican and that would be the direction I would go in. But dude, this thing just kind of gets it done. You know what I mean? It does everything that I need it to do. I have no complaints about it. It's built like a tank. So, I could easily see it, lasting for many, many years, and that sort of thing. And it costs, like I said, $75-80 or something or whatever, maybe $85. And that really makes that whole situation so much easier. I am super anal retentive about that kind of stuff. And, carrying things that I think I might need, I try to think in my head, when am I going to need this, or, play out scenarios in my head, so that I am actually being super honest about my expectations as an engineer and what is expected of me to be able to fix. Again, nothing makes you look like a professional more than being prepared for the unexpected. So that's the purpose of the bag. It basically carries my sweat towels and my iPads, and my electrical tester. Those are the things that I use most out of there. But that Leatherman multi-tool gets a lot of miles. And, I get into situations where, I need a special adapter for something, or, or if I'm working at a corporate event and there's a DJ on site that needs an adapter for something to get into my system. Most of the time I have that in that bag, and we're good to go. And again, that really communicates competency, that you're competent to do the job, and that the client can feel like that they hired the right guy for the job. So I love you guys. I'll see you next week.